We're here this afternoon with Chris Wardeen. So Chris, tell me about the farm.
Today we milk about 500 cows here, and pretty much exclusively dairy. All of the feed that forages and stuff we grow here.
So what kind of farming philosophy do you have as far as, you know, sustainability, environment, water?
We've done cover crops over the years. We haven't. And then part of why I was excited to get involved with this project is because we've probably not done any cover cropping in about 4 or 5 years, but we were wanting to get back into it, so it seemed like a good opportunity to do that.
So how have you incorporated those covers? Now you're using it as a cover crop, but you're also using it as a forage.
Absolutely.
So can you talk a little bit about your rotation, the system, and maybe how manure fits in?
Sure.
You know,
absolutely.
What windows may open up or not open up?
Yeah, so again, all of our acres are dedicated to feed in some form or another. So we have pasture that's a continuous pasture. But then the other main crops we're growing is all of our corn goes to silage. We do have a fair amount of alfalfa that goes to silage as well. But then the small grain is something we've tried different rotations over the years to go from corn back into alfalfa. So what we used to do is always do spring seed with a nurse crop, either a cowpea or wheat or something else that got us tonnage. But we were always disappointed in that first year of alfalfa. We just never quite got enough of it. And when land's at a premium, we're really trying to get everything we can out of every acre. So we started moving more into a fall seeded alfalfa. And then what we did was we've tried wheat. But again, you're exporting crop off that I'd rather feed. So we kind of moved more to a sorghum-sudan rotation where we would seed that somewhere at the beginning of June. Then we chop the sorghum-sudan either once or twice, put some manure on the ground in that summer window, and then get it seeded to alfalfa. The cover crop over the winter kind of came in when we were trying to push a little more forage from those same acres. And that's indeed what we're going to try to do this year with our pilot program. We seeded the triticale on the 18th of September. We chopped that off just this week. Then we're going to put that this coming week into sorghum-sudangrass again. Then the manure will follow, and then the alfalfa will get seeded. So that's kind of the philosophy of where I think cover crops fit here, is it helps us get from the corn crop into alfalfa and not really miss a year, so to speak, with the alfalfa.
You know, Chris, I see that you've got some waterways that go through your farm. And how do you plan your cropping systems? Maybe how to keep that water clean. I mean, you utilize it as a water source for irrigation, you mentioned. Can you talk about that a little bit, of how this plays into your management from an environmental standpoint?
Absolutely. Yeah, so we do a fair amount of rotational grazing, and a lot of our pasture is sort of centered around that stream and the creeks that we have here. And part of that is because it's that doesn't get turned over, you know. So we think we're doing a good job both from an erosion standpoint and a nutrient standpoint, keeping that stuff where it needs to be. But it is an important part of our farm, and I think a lot of the older farms, you know, it was a valuable farm to have if you had water there, and that's kind of how ours started too. So today we really do utilize that a lot, because that's where all of our water for our pivots comes from, is the creek. And so we do want to protect that resource, and so we're trying to do everything we can.
Yeah, and being part of the cover crop project can help with that. You know, stabilize your ditch bank, your erosion prevention. You know, create that sustainable system that protects all resources. So, what advice do you have for the person just starting out? What are the do's and don'ts? What are lessons learned?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say first and foremost, you got to go into it with a plan of what you're going to do with the crop, because that really sets up how you seed it, how you fertilize it, how you harvest it, and when. And then weather, of course, trumps everything, but you got to go in with a plan. So I think from a yield standpoint, get it in as early as you can. We had pretty ideal conditions last fall. We also didn't have to put manure on it last fall, so we got it seeded pretty much right after we were done harvesting corn silage, September 18th. then we knew we were going to feed it to cows. So we were really scouting that field hard this spring and made sure to get it before we had, you know, it was even probably a little prior to boot stage. We just wanted to make sure we had good quality forage. Lessons learned on the fertilization end of it, I think because we didn't put any manure on it right in the fall, it received manure in the spring. But then we grew corn after that. It probably ran out of nitrogen. We did take a tissue sample that kind of confirmed that it probably would have benefited from some nitrogen. So I think in future years, particularly if we don't get manure on right ahead of it, we're probably just going to plan to put some sort of nitrogen on it to make sure it doesn't run out of nutrients and get the optimal yield.
Can you kind of give an estimate of maybe what kind of tonnage you got off them acres?
Yeah, so we're figuring roughly 1.3 tons of dry matter to the acre is what we got. So, and we got that put up on average at 38% dry matter. So that's kind of where I would say it's certainly not the best winter small grain crop I've ever grown, but it wasn't the worst either. And I'm hoping we got it at very, very good quality. Next week we'll test it after it has some chance to ferment. We'll see what kind of protein numbers and quality numbers we get out of it.
So far so good.
I think so. It went pretty well.
Good.